Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today is my better late than never review of Stephen King's You Like It Darker. His most recent novel, his most recent short story collection. I know it's been out for a couple months now. I'm sure there's a bunch of reviews up on YouTube, but like I said, better late than never. So today, just want to go through this one. I want to go through it story by story, talk a little bit about the stories, what I liked, what I disliked, but there was a lot of like in this one for sure. I really did enjoy this front to back. Some entertaining reads, including one that, honestly, we'll get to it, but right now, to me, it was one of the better things he's written in a long time, and it really showed us a little bit of a flashback to the vintage King. So yeah, I mean, let's get right into it a little more in depth. Let's go through this one. All right, so before I get into the first story here, just want to let you know there probably will be spoilers in this one. I'm not planning on it being spoiler-ridden, but let's be honest, it's hard to talk about, especially short stories, without spoiling a little bit of it. So there's probably going to be spoilers. The first story in this novel was called Two Talented Bastards. I believe bastards is the Boston accent there. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, this story was pretty good. It was a good start to this one. It was about 60 pages long, so it did start out with one of the more lengthier ones, I'd say. And it was a tone setter for sure. It was a little mysterious. It was one that really would make you think. So, in a nutshell, I guess, these two gentlemen go on a hunting trip to a remote cabin, and something really weird happens to them out there. Don't know if it was aliens or something else, but they encounter something out there, and maybe it was the whole like sold your soul to the devil type thing. But when they came back, they were both very talented in their jobs, and they ended up being very successful. And it takes you then into their older age, where they then have to go confront, or it was maybe like their son or something like that wanted to go and see if there was something there, because I believe they were sworn to secrecy, something along those lines. Might be butchering this synopsis a little bit, but I do remember liking that story quite a bit, and it was enthralling. I was really into that one. So next up is a story called The Fifth Step. Now, this story was only 10 pages long, but let me tell you, it was a pretty wild 10 pages. This story follows a retiree who is basically just enjoying his retirement and sitting on a bench in New York City, just reading the paper and minding his own business, when a gentleman comes up to him and asks him if he can sit down and he'll pay him some money to have 20 minutes of his time or something along those lines. So he begrudgingly ends up letting him do it, and the gentleman ends up telling him this story about how he's in recovery, and this was part of his process of recovering, and it was his fifth step, and he had to talk to a stranger, and then it just slaps you in the face right at the end with a pretty crazy twist. So this one is definitely worth the read. It's only 10 pages. Just sit down, read it. Really, really masterful writing for only 10 pages. Now, I could have sworn I have read that story before. I for the life of me, I can't place it. If anybody knows if that was published in any other collection, maybe not a Stephen King collection itself, because why would he do it twice? But in a collection of stories with multiple different authors, because I could have sworn I read that story before. Something was just screaming to me that I just kind of, everything sounded familiar when I was reading it. So if you know, let me know down below, because I would love to get to the bottom of that one. Okay, next up, the third story in the collection was called Willie the Weirdo. This one was another short one, but another really good one, only about a dozen pages. And like the previous one, it reads with quite the twist at the end. Not going to give away too much about this one, about a weird little kid and his grandfather, and his dying grandfather that he had this, who was bedridden, and he had this weird relationship with him. And again, really crazy twist. Seems to be a theme of this collection. and probably why it was such a good one. But yeah, this one at the end, like the other one, it'll probably smack you in the face and really just kind of leave you in awe once you're done it. So yeah, another really good one. All right, next up is Danny Coughlin's Bad Dream. I think everybody has been talking about this one. It's about 150 pages, so it is a good length. And let me tell you, I just could not put this one down. Like, it was a problem. I had to get to the end of this. It was such good writing. Just how he laid everything out there for you, and it was so infuriating that you just had to read on to see what the outcome of this would be. Like, I was honestly, like, I was reading this at my desk at work, not really caring what anybody thought, because like I just needed to get this done and get through it. If you don't know what it's about, this guy, Danny Coughlin, has this bad dream, and it seems to be, it was premonition of finding a dead body, and it was such a vivid dream for him that he had to go out and explore this location that he knew where it was, and he drove out there. And sure enough, he finds the dead body. He ends up calling the police, and this leads to him becoming the #1 suspect. It was so well done. The characters were so good. The cop was so frustrating to read about, and I recommend this to anybody. Like I said in the intro, this was kind of, for me, felt like a flashback to vintage King, and it was so refreshing to read. Especially how disappointed I was with his last couple. I just, like I said, it was a breath of fresh air. I was really just so overjoyed to be reading this story, and just how much I enjoyed it and how into it I was. I wanted more. I really thought there was enough there for it to be a feature novel, but I'm not complaining. It was so well done, even at the page count that it was at. And that's just the type of stuff that I think he should keep churning out. Like, he can still do it, for sure. Danny Coughlin's Bad Dream was top notch. Next up is a shorter one called Finn. It was only about 20 pages or so, and this was a fun one. A typical case of mistaken identity with some really bad people. And this one was like creepy in its own way, because of like just how easily maybe something like that could happen to people, and what would you do if it did? Like I said, mistaken identity. He gets kidnapped by these like gangsters, I guess you could say, and gets caught up where they think he's somebody that he's not. And I guess the theme of this story was that this guy, Finn, his entire life he had the case of just horrible luck, and this was just yet another thing that went wrong for him. Like I said, not much to say about it, but it was a fun read for sure. Next up was a story called On Slide Road In. It was about the same length as our last one, about 20 pages or so. And this one has a really good payoff for sure. This one's about a family of 4 with their grandfather traveling, trying to take a shortcut, and getting their car stuck on Slide Road In. They end up coming across a couple people by a motel in the middle of nowhere, basically. And these people aren't very nice people. And they have to kind of navigate their way out of this situation. And like I said, this story's got a good payoff without giving away too much more. Like I said, another short and sweet one. And if you like revenge stories in a way, check this one out. It was fun. All right, next up is a very short one, only 10 pages. It's called Red Screen. This one was a little weird. It was only 10 pages, really short, but it was kind of weird. Kind of gave me the vibes of They Live, if you've ever seen that movie. If you've seen They Live, you probably know what I'm talking about in a general sense. But yeah, it's about being tipped off to maybe Invasion of the Body Snatchers, kind of like people are getting taken over and aren't who they seem. and then that may lead to some sort of paranoia. So in a way, that's what that one was about. Like I said, a little weird for a 10-page story, but fun nonetheless. So next up was about a 14 or 15-page story called The Turbulence Expert. This one was another one that was a little bit on the weird side. This one wasn't my favorite by any means in this collection. The Turbulence Expert is pretty much what it sounds like. There was a guy whose job it was to ride on planes that people, I guess, some sort of like secret agency knew was going to crash, whether it be from prescience or some sort of premonition. I think that's what I took from it. And his position, his job was to make sure it didn't crash by giving into some sort of like absolute fear. That's what I took from it. And the story is about him doing that and recruiting some new members. And it's one of those things, once you're in, you can't get out. So, yeah, like I said, it was weird. Wasn't the greatest read in this collection, but, you know, can't win them all, I guess. All right, now the next one called Lori. This is one that I definitely had read before, and I remember where I read it. I remember about, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 years ago on StephenKing.com, there was a link that to a short story of his that had never been published in one of his collections, at least, and it was called Lori. It was this story, and all you had to do was download the PDF and either read it on your computer, or you could just print off pages and just read them. So that's what I did. I just, one day at work, I downloaded the PDF, and when I wasn't busy, I just sat there and read this story. So I did remember reading Lori. Other than that, though, it was good to read it again, I guess. It was a pretty interesting story with the crocodile, or alligator, sorry, it's an alligator in Florida, like we have on the cover here. So the alligator wasn't the total focal point of this story. This story based around a widower. I believe he was a widower, and he was kind of struggling, and his sister comes up with an idea to bring him a puppy to be his companion and kind of get him to have a sense of responsibility and get him out of the house and that sort of thing. And this gentleman, he did not want anything to do with this puppy, but I mean, like anybody who gets a puppy, you may not want it at the beginning, but eventually you're going to grow to love this thing, and he's probably going to become one of your best, he or she is probably going to become one of your best friends. And that's what happened here. He grew really attached to this puppy, and take it from there. And I mean, they have a little bit of a run-in with an alligator, and then the rest is history, I guess you could say. But yeah, it was a really fun read, and I would recommend that story. It's short. It's only about 25 pages or so. So yeah, check that one out, Lori. All right, so next up is a story called Rattlesnakes. Now this one is a very loose sequel to Cujo. Even though it's got the same character from Cujo, the husband from Cujo. I mean, I don't know if you call it a sequel. It doesn't really have anything to do with it, but other than references past a couple times. But it's its own story in its own thing, and it's a creepy one. He's living down in Florida, and it's funny how people say it's a sequel to Cujo, but there's actually a lot of references made to Doohickey, which is interesting as well. So you could probably kind of call it maybe a sequel to both of them. So it's pretty cool how you got a few different books connecting here. So yeah, Rattlesnakes is like I said, it's a creepy story. I'm not going to say too much about this one, but maybe a haunting ghost story type thing. If you're into that kind of thing, this one will be up your alley. All right, next up was about a 35-page story called The Dreamers. This was another one that I didn't really enjoy that much. Just kind of ripped through this one. Like I said, didn't really grab me. It was a little weird. To be honest with you, even talking about it right now, I'm not quite 100% sure how to even explain it. Like I said, it was weird. Something to do with obviously dreams and using these dreams. It was like a recurring dream at a clinic of some sorts. Like I said, it's a little hazy to me. I think I just ripped through that one real quick because I just wasn't too into it. So yeah, I don't know. If you got a better explanation of the Dreamers, leave a comment below and let me know, because apparently that one went right over my head. All right, and lastly, let's finish with a story called The Answerman. I absolutely love this one. I thought it was a great way to finish. Just a really cool, creepy story about an interaction with a guy who he keeps finding at points of his life driving down the street. And sorry about my dog is barking at probably nothing outside. So he keeps driving down the street and he finds this man called the Answerman, who's set up there like a guy selling fruit on the side of the street. And he basically tells him for X amount of money, he can answer 3 questions or something like that. And he will tell him the absolute truth to these questions. And I think he ends up doing this like 3 different times in his life, 2 or 3 different times in his life. But it's just crazy how each experience kind of spirals downhill for our main character. And I just thought it was really well written and just an interesting, kind of disturbing story in a way. So yeah, that one is definitely worth a check out. All right, so before I leave you, I just want to leave you with just a little excerpt here from the prologue, or the afterword, sorry, that Stephen King wrote. I just think this is the most beautiful way to put how we are as constant readers, as horror fans. And I'm sure a lot of you guys read the afterwards yourself, but if not, let me just share with you something that really hit home for me. Horror stories are best appreciated by those who are compassionate and empathetic. A paradox, but a true one. I believe it is the unimaginative among us, those incapable of appreciating the dark side of make-believe, who have been responsible for most of the world's woes. In stories of the supernatural and paranormal, I have tried especially hard to show the real world as it is, and to tell the truth about the America I know and love. Some of those truths are ugly, but as the poem says, scars become beauty marks when there is love. I'm going to leave you with that, and once again, thanks for tuning in, and it's been great hanging out with you guys. Yeah, I love you all. Take care, keep reading, and we'll talk to you soon.